So this is my Guardian bow. There is no Guardian bow in Breath of the Wild, even though there's Guardian everything else, and there's an ancient bow, but I wanted specifically a Guardian bow because of the whole blue light from nowhere, and that's pretty much a lightsaber right there. And to have one that makes up a bow, that was a little bit of an interesting challenge. So I was like, I'm totally going to make one of those, and I don't care what anybody else thinks. So I took some of the design cues which already exist for like the spears or the axes, swords, shields, and whatnot, and just sort of smashed them together so that they kind of resemble a bow, or at least have, upon further inspection, have some of the more recognizable design aspects and elements and whatnot. And I got some of them right, some of them not quite right, but for the most part I think I got a cool looking thing, prop, toy. Let's go with toy. The preview only had the regular Arrowhead, but I just wanted to do an ancient Arrowhead because of cool. So it's an ancient Arrowhead, and it fits a little bit better with the rest of the scheme, so that when it's off it matches the colors, it matches the weathering, etc., etc., the dirty white and the brown. Also, what's different from the demo is that I put in some of the new 22mm speakers that TCSS started carrying, and holy crap, it's so much louder. And the other ones, they were good and fine, except for I had to turn it down because they were clipping on some of the higher frequencies and the bass and whatnot. But these, I was able to keep it at full volume, and on top of that, there's one on each side, so that when you're holding it straight on, you're getting the full sound, because otherwise, if it was on this side, you wouldn't hear very well on this side, and vice versa. So I went with 2 speakers, which made it really super loud. So functionality, it's a blaster core, and blaster cores usually have triggers, but this one has the draw sound and the release sound, and actually the trigger is the impact, so all those different things. Those are the impacts, basically, for the different arrowheads, and the bar graph is the different dies on the LED head. So that's how I did that. As far as the trigger and the pull and stuff, that's pretty much just the magazine release function. So this button on the back here is the magazine release. So this would be magazine out, and then magazine back in. That process actually has like 5 sounds that are strung together, and in order to get the trigger sound, what it does naturally is that when you put it back in, it'll refill the bar graph. So that last LED on the bar graph I have pexed back into the trigger so that it'll trigger the trigger, and that's how I was able to get that. And the flash, seeing as how it's an RGBW LED, I was able to put that in there also. Blah 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 blah, boring electronic stuff, but yeah, so as far as functionality wise, you get the draw and the release. And the impact, which is fire in this case. There's actually a couple of sounds that are left in there that I have blanked out so they don't do anything. But if I wanted to put other things in there, I could do that also. But either way, so. Fire, freeze, ice arrow, electric arrow, shock arrow. I like this one the most. Just because it sounds really fun. Bomb arrow, I don't know if you're able to pick it out from the demo when it was turned down. It's a seismic charge from episode 2. Attack of the Clones, Star Wars, is a little crossover here. I mean, we got the lightsaber-y stuff going on. You got to throw in a little bit of extra nerdiness in there too. But there's two switches right here. This is the aux button and then the trigger. The secondary trigger doesn't actually do anything. It's just for triggering the bringing up the vocal menus. It says Guardian Bow. The background hum, I just took some of the background music. It sounds really good.
Fragile. It must be Italian.
So I wanted a setting that would have jam capabilities, and I'll talk about that in a second.
Audio player. Audio player.
And since this is the bar graph right here, it lights up to the music, which I thought was a cool extra bonus, and I didn't realize that until I turned the dang thing on. And I was like, wow, cool. The end. So the jam function that I wanted to do, I actually had a sound all made up that was the exploding of a weapon, and that was going to be the jam sound, and then the changing to a different item sound was going to be the clearing of the jamming. But since every single time I pull the drawstring, or the pull bowstring, and that's basically unjamming it so that it would never actually jam, because every single time you fire it off, you're clearing the weapon. So, oh well, that feature didn't work, but I still kept the menu sound in there because that makes me laugh. The Arrowhead is just sort of press fit on here, and I can swap back the other one if I wanted to, but that's just an RGBW there. And if it's on a different color, blue is really dim on this one for some reason. Well, not for some reason. I know why, because it's not fed the same way. It's only given 20 milliamps, even though it's supposed to get like an amp and a half. But the green lights up really well, so I like keeping it on green. Plus, that's the shock arrow, which I already said that I like a whole lot. What else? The pretty pictures should be at the end of the video, but for the most part, yeah, not too much to talk about as far as design. I'll get into that and the other stuff, the how I made it. But otherwise, this is the main power right here. I wanted it so that it was accessible with the one hand. The arrow is attached. I don't know if you've been able to tell. Arrow ain't going nowhere. It's screwed on in two places right here, but strategically painted so that you can't see that it's screwed on. But this part, I don't know what this is. The sort of comes off of the arrow rest here. It kind of reminds me of a Guardian leg, so I kept it. But otherwise, it can go all the way out and all the way down. That's about it. And yeah, that's the Guardian bow.
Alright, so this is how I made the Guardian bow. I started with a drawing, and it's not the best, but it gets the point across as far as which elements to include, what's going to be lit up, and how it's generally going to look. And I cut it out of MDF to begin with, and acrylic, and glued those pieces together. Made some braces to bolster the sides out of some more poplar that you get at Home Depot, and shortened the limbs a little because the original design was a little bit big. I just cut trenches in the acrylic to run the LED strip, so those will be facing outward, which is going to illuminate the acrylic, which eventually is going to get hazed. But I started with aluminum tape, covered it with green frog tape, and then hit it with the band file again, just on one side. But that was enough to prevent the band file from chewing through all the way and creating those blank spots. Did that with a hand guard also, except for on a smaller scale. Once I did that, taped it off, painted it white. This is the arrow rest, and that little thing on it was there from the beginning, and I don't know what it is, but it's there. The handguard didn't light up as well as the other stuff, but it's still okay. And once I had that preliminary test done, I had all the pieces completed, then I could start the install, which included the guts. Oh my god, the guts. There's a bus bar made out of copper foil tape. I don't know if you can see on the bottom there, but that's where all the ground stuff went to because there were so many ground points on this thing. The Arrowhead was just an RGBW that I got from LDM again. The lights on the limbs, that's just individual orange LEDs that I had cut off of the hundreds of feet of orange LED strip that I have left over. And then covered it with some more hazed out acrylic and then painted over those. It started with a base of white first so I could speckle it brown and control how brown it was. The arrow fletching is just EVA foam, the floor mat that I glued together, cut up, shaped with the band file, and made some slits, and then hit it with a heat gun to sort of open it up to give it that little, and it's more of a cartoon feathery appearance. But then I made different gradients of green, mixed white and green and stuff, which was kind of an adventure, but hey, it worked. And then had some hemp twine and painted that to be the fletching ties in the front and the back. And then once those were in place, then I went and painted the arrow shaft, which was originally aluminum tubes for rigidity and toughness, but and so that you could run wires down it. That was just a mixture of white, yellow, and brown for this nice kind of dirty wood look. The little white tracings are supposed to resemble the white tracings on like Guardians, and again, just that general look. And in retrospect, I should have made them a little thicker. And then once I had all the acrylic in place, then I hog-tied it and hit it with some clear coat. The stand was a whole bunch of leftover scraps of poplar that I originally just glued together and then bolstered with some wood screws in strategic places. The Guardian ancient script I got offline somewhere, and it's the same stuff that's written all over the place in Breath of the Wild. Yeah, it didn't even come close, but hey, at least it looks cool. Ancient Arrowhead was pretty simple. It was more of an afterthought after I'd already posted the demo, but did more acrylic, some of the 1/4 inch, and then I found a little piece that was a little bit thinner than that, and just glued it together. And the hazing was the same as before. I only hazed out one side, and then instead of hitting it with a band file this time, I just used little needle files and an X-Acto knife to get some of the hazing down. A little bit of EVA craft foam, and Bob's your uncle. So like I said, this was a kind of a challenge project, and I had a really good time interpreting all those different elements that could possibly make up a bow. And this took a little bit longer than the shield and the spear, but again, I think that extra time kind of went to the finishing of it, and it ended up looking really good because of that. So enjoy the pretty pictures. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you around.